Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe. Forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Oh, for a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe, that will not murmur or complain beneath a chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. A faith that shines more bright and clear when tempest rage without, that when in danger knows no fear, in darkness feels no doubt. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, we'll taste and hear the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fitted for the sky, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my Master's will. Arm me with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and O thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give. Help me to watch and pray, and on thyself rely. Assured if I my trust betray, I shall forever die. Rise up, O men of God, have done with lesser things. Give heart and mind and soul and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O men of God, his kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O men of God, the church for you doth wait. Her strength unequal to her task, rise up and make her great. Lift high the cross of Christ, tread where his feet have trod. As brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God.
Greetings, howdy, and salutations. It's Young Brothers edition, y'all. Or to be more specific, Young Brother edition. Our other brother is off spending some time with his dad, I believe. Alrighty, Sam. Well, thank you for popping in, and you go have a good and enriching time studying. Ooh. Let's just right. Someone has not completed tagging. Okay. Rest assured, the person tagging is tagging. We will have some tags here shortly. Ooh. For the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our sacrifice of praise. For the beauty of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our sacrifice of praise. For the joy of human love, brother, sister, parent, child, friends on earth and friends above, for the gentle, all thoughts and mild, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our sacrifice of praise. For thy church that evermore lifteth holy hands above, offering up on every shore her pure sacrifice of love. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our sacrifice of praise. Hello, Sheila! It is good to see you, sister. It is good to see you. I am running about 30 minutes late. And for that, I do apologize. And Sheila, haven't I seen you somewhere, sister? Oh. Remember, if you have any song requests, we'll give them a shot. Or we'll see how far we get. Have any topics, we'll see how far we get. And if you have any Bible questions, we'll see how far we get. I'm simple that way. Sheila is pondering. And then proceeding to laugh. Oh, Sheila, I hope your day went well, and I hope that you're doing good. Oh, so today was a beautiful day. It was really hot, which, it's September. Sometimes you'll end up with that here in Iowa. It's like toss of a coin. You get into September, you better be ready. Bring your coat and bring your short sleeves. But we ended up with 93 degrees today. We haven't had rain for 2, maybe 3 weeks, if not a little longer. And it's starting to show we really need some rain. Ooh, but it got hot. It was melting hot. I'm melting! Sheila says, yes, it was a beautiful day. Glad to hear it. But if you were in the shade, it wasn't so bad, let me tell you. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the shade a lot. Isn't it funny how that always works out? Nonetheless, it was a beautiful and a glorious day that the good Lord provided. Even if it was hot. I picked my first muskmelons of the year. They're, I want to say Wednesday. It might have been Thursday. Somewhere around there. And it was really odd. Now, of course, everyone you'll talk to will agree with me. We've had some really weird growing weather. At least up here in Iowa. I kind of think it's been everywhere, but I know for sure it was here in Iowa. Very few people's gardens did great. And it was odd because we had a wonderfully wet spring. Like, perfect. So, very odd. Because the gardens didn't grow really well. All of my first batch of cabbages said, nah. And they stayed the exact same size from the start of summer to now. They have not grown any bigger. It has been weird. Extremely strange. And it doesn't make any sense. They didn't die, but they haven't gotten any bigger. And I'm not sure what exactly causes a plant just to go stationary. I do not know. But the cabbages said, let's not get any bigger. Really weird. And the muskmelons kind of didn't take off like they normally do and go crazy. And this is the first year I've had really small muskmelons. About that big. Give or take. About that big. I've never grown a muskmelon that small, which has also been really weird. Normally, my muskmelons are about that big. Nice sized. Head sized. And so getting ones that are, kind of like that size on that size is kind of odd when you're used to that size. Yet again, another weird anomaly. The cucumbers did okay. They did pretty good. Once they got going, they started going. And so that was one thing that went really well so far. And it is still producing, even though we've had some nights in the 40s. Right? Spring started, it was really nice, the rain, and then summer came in with 90s and tried to kill everything. Well, this has been kind of an interesting year in the fact that for once we actually had a spring. Up here, since the drought started last at least 5, some would even say 8 years, is when it started. We haven't had much of a spring. Your snow would melt and then give it about a week or two, and then you'd be in 90s and it'd just run 80s and 90s the rest of the way. And that's what it's been for at least the last 5 years. 80s and 90s. Barely any warm up springtime. But this year, due to all the rains and everything we actually had a good solid couple months of spring where it got up there into the 60s and kind of leveled off, maybe some 70s here or there. But it was nice and wet, gorgeous, and it lasted a good period of time before the 90s came. And so it was looking out to be a great growing year. And then summer came and everything just stopped, or most plants stopped. I only know of maybe 2 people that have had successful tomato crops this year, and one of which being Grandma got her tomatoes really early and perfect, and yeah, one of the other members of the congregation did pretty good with his tomatoes, but he did notice it was a little weird too, which is a surprise because, yeah. So my tomatoes are just as of maybe 2 weeks ago coming into full force production, and these are the ones that volunteered. So it has taken all year since the spring for them to get this far, which is weird. And the ones that I planted just now have fruit on them. Just now. Not even, they're getting ready to ripen. They haven't even started ripening yet. They're just getting fruit on them. So yet another anomaly. The thing that really took off in my garden this year were radishes, okra, and cucumbers. Oh, and the peppers. Once the peppers started going, it took them a long time, till about midsummer, before they really started popping them out. But now that they're going, they're going. And it's beautiful. Let me see. I might be able to pull up a picture. Ooh. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Photos. Interesting. No. Maybe not. No such luck. Not where I thought they would be. Interesting. Oh, nope. That idea died. Let me pull it up on my phone and see. Because I snapped a few pictures. Maybe. I'm sure I did it a couple days ago, but the archive is saying otherwise. Really? Really? Dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun. There we are. Okay, let's see how well this works. Which may not be hardly at all. There you got kind of like the best shot. Because it's screen to screen. But the pepper plant took off. It has our purples and our oranges and some reds on it. All those splotchies are peppers. So that's the best I can do. Yep, that was it. So, yeah, the peppers really have taken off all of a sudden. They're doing nice and happy, and I come into the garden and I stop by them. I say, "You guys are doing great. Good job. Good job." And see, these are the peppers I had dug up last year at about halfway to 3/4 of the way through October. Dug them up, put them in pots, brought them inside, and of course that always makes them lose a little bit of foliage. You kind of snip them down, trim them up a little bit, and turn on your grow lights and let them grow. And they stayed alive with foliage on them all year long, or all winter long. And then I put them out when the springtime came and the weather got into the 60s and 70s steady. Then I put them out. And then all of a sudden they started getting their foliage back, and they grew and grew. And then they kind of hit a halting period where they leveled off. That was about the start of the summer. And then midsummer, they went boop, let's just start cranking them out. And so I started putting on peppers, and here fall started, and now they're just throwing them at you. And this is the most productive my peppers have been in 2 years. So that's nice. Why did you start doing that? Huh? That's uncalled for. You don't need to flicker. Unnecessary. totally unnecessary. Hey, I got it to stop without the card. Yay! So yeah. But other than that, my okra is doing great. Thankfully, in my observations of this area, we have a nice patch in my garden that would be called a natural hotspot. And a natural hotspot is where the ground stays a little bit warmer a little longer. And there's all sorts of factors that can play into this as to why it's like that. But it's a place that heats up sooner. The snow melts off of it a lot faster than anywhere else. And it also takes longer for the killing freeze to get in there. And so 4 years ago, I had my tomatoes and my peppers in there. And they did great. This was one of those years that they did good. I was really happy. And we had tomatoes and peppers setting on and ripening all the way to the 1st of November, which is not normal for Iowa. And then the 1st of November, they kind of slowed down, and then the cold weather finally killed them, and the killing frost finally got in there, and that was the end of the tomatoes and peppers. But we got them all the way into November. And so, yeah. For some reason or another, this area is just, the ground temperature is just a little warmer. And so it's a really good spot for tomatoes and peppers. They really like it. And so, yeah. You know, tomatoes won't set fruit on if the temperature isn't above I want to say around 55 degrees. Anything under and the tomato will not even bother putting a fruit on. Hello, Sister T. So, oh, another thing that did all right was my beans. My beans did pretty good. They took off and did pretty good. Right now, I'm letting them stop. I stopped harvesting on them, and I'm letting them just finish their life cycle. So then they'll dry up. They'll finish priming the seeds. And then once all the seed pods are dry, I can take them. I can crack them open and save those seeds and use them for next year. Sheila says, didn't know that. Yes. Fun fact. Tomatoes won't even bother putting fruit on if the weather's 75 and under. Won't even bother. Nope. Nope. It will not even bother. I did some research into tomato flowers a while back. And tomato flowers are a rather interesting thing because they're one of the few gardening plants that do not require both male and female flowers, because the single flower is already both male and female. They have both necessary parts. And what happens, can anyone guess what the leading pollinator is for a tomato plant? I'll give you a few minutes. Sister says, you're pretty smart doing gardening. Thank you, Sister T, but there's still way more to know. I am constantly tinkering and experimenting. There's still a lot more to figure out. Number one thing that pollinates tomatoes. I'll get to that in a moment, Sister T. No, planting them does not pollinate them, sister. No. The number one thing that pollinates a tomato flower, that causes a tomato to put on fruit, is the wind. Believe it or not, it is not bees. And what they found is most bees won't even bother a tomato plant. Not worth their time. The only bee that actually does is the bumblebee. And what happens in that cycle is the bumblebee will grab on with his legs down here and then bite into the bottom of the flower and suck out any of the pollen or nectar, whatever, that it can get. And all the while, bumblebees are vibrating with their wings, bzzz, and it's moving around, and that's what pollinates the flower. Because on the inside of a tomato plant, give me a moment, it has both the male and female counterparts. So the male part is the stem on the inside. And I'm using the pencil for reference. Stem on the inside. And the female part of the flower is actually the base. So all that has to happen with one tomato flower is that it has to get knocked around where all the pollen from the tip falls down inside the flower. Once the pollen from the top has made it to the bottom, the flower is pollinated. And then you have tomatoes. Provided you can get them to grow. Little rascals. Now, Sister T asks the question, how do you tell the difference between the flowers? And well, I'll see if I can find one. Okay. Okay, so we're going to use squash or zucchini or any of those vine type ones for our example here today. Ooh, wow. Wow. Okay. Man, that blew up really big. And I'll answer that question here in a moment, Sister D. Okay. Let's see here. So, the one on the right does my... Let's see here. Hang on. Let's see if I can get my cursor to show up. Yep, there it is. Shows up. Okay. So, the one on the right, over here, that has this big bulb on the bottom of it, is a female flower. So, that's a female flower. And then the one on the other side is a male. The one on the other side has all the pollen, which a bee will then enter the flower, get covered in the pollen, and then move over to the female and disperse all that pollen on the inside of the female flower. So thus, pollinating the female, and that right there is your little bitty squash that will soon start to grow when pollinated. So that's how you tell the difference between flowers, Sister T, on squash and cucumbers and melons, and there's a whole list of things. And that's the general difference between the two. The female actually have what you would consider to be the egg at the base of the flower. Sister T says, wow. Yes, the good Lord knew what he was doing when he designed all of these things. And it strikes me as really interesting that someone could look at these and say that they were caused out of randomness or chaos or a giant explosion. Because none of this is what happens after a giant explosion. None. Each of these things that we have just been talking about, God's nature, God's creation, was designed to function in a specific and certain way. And it always strikes me as, how can you say that this came from nothing? From an explosion? When it was designed. Design must have a designer. It must. Creation must have a creator. And so, that's one thing I love about gardening, because in a sense, it helps me to feel closer to God's creation, to his beauty, to his power, for lack of a better word. Actually, I think that's the perfect word. Closer to his power, because I, as a gardener, am observing his creation, noting how he made it function and work, and it's just awe-inspiring. The simplest, the tiniest of things has so much complexity in it. The simple moving of pollen from a male flower to a female flower creates growth and a fruit or a new plant. It'll eventually end up a new plant, just because some of that pollen moved from one flower to another. Such a tiny, tiny thing creates such a big impact. And, you know, I always find it very amusing, because I'll take a seed and put it in the ground, water it, and say, now, Lord, the rest is up to you, because I can't do a single thing more for that seed. I have done it. That is all I can do for it. Only you can make it grow. That's it. And so it's just something amazing to behold. That just because I put that little itty bitty pebble, that little itty bitty seed in the ground, God took it and made a full plant that can feed people. Amazing. Or some of them are full-blown plants that are beautiful to look at, that smell nicely, and that help the bees. Just from that one little seed, the good Lord manages to bring awesome results. It's beyond me. Sister T says, interesting to know, what made you a gardener? What made me a gardener was probably the best way to say it would be Grandpa and Dad. Gardening has been in our family for quite some time. Grandpa, in order to feed his family, had a 10-acre truck garden in which Dad grew up, learned, and helped tend to. And then eventually it came to the time when I was growing up where Dad says, all right, O'Shea, you need to till this strip, this little plot of land, and then come talk to me. We came, we got seeds, we planted things, and I first learned then what it was to grow plants. And from there, I always hated weeding. It was really, really boring. And I wasn't exactly all that interested, you could say, but I could do it. And from there, I got to the point where Dad didn't need to help me plant the garden. And he just told me, all right, here's the seeds, go plant them. And eventually got to the point where it was my garden. And so that is how I'm a gardener. And a large portion of it is to Dad and to Grandpa's teaching of Dad and me. That put me there. No, Sister T. That's a side effect of being the gardener, is I'm in contact with that. But what put me there, if it wasn't for Dad putting me out in the garden and saying, tilling this and plant that, I wouldn't be a gardener. Probably because I never would have found it. And so after a couple years of really hating weeding and planting, it eventually became my knack to learn how to do this better. And then I'd spend my winters reading all about it. Books and books. I have several good-sized books on propagating, planting, pollinating, growing, pruning, the whole works. And so eventually I learned the interest. And now, because I learned the interest, I can take that and I can use that to feed people and to enjoy growing things, because it is a good bit relieving to be able to walk into my garden and be at peace and work at a simple task that takes forever. It's peaceful. There's a really weird sense of peace that comes from it. And because of it, because I'm there, I'm planting these things, I'm observing God's creation, and that's where that whole thing about God and planting came from. Because it's the truth. But if it wasn't for my grandfather and my dad, I probably wouldn't be sticking seeds in the ground. But it's a mixture of all of the reasons above. And because of it, I get to observe God work his handiness, his creation, the way he designed it to. And I just get to be an innocent bystander. Because there's nothing I can do to make it grow. I can just make sure it has the proper water and plant it in a place where it gets proper light. That's it. Once I've done that, it's out of my hands. She says, great grandfather and dad. Sheila says, it's the way it should be. Each teach at least one, I say. Amen. Amen. So that's what got me started as a gardener. That's why I continue to keep on gardening. And it keeps you out of a whole lot of trouble, too. And then you learn, God's natural cycle for the plant, the different stages it goes through. And you learn how to use it and to preserve it, for lack of a better word. Like I mentioned with my beans, I planted them. We kept them weeded. We harvest off of them. I know you weren't calling him a great-grandfather. You were calling him a great-grandfather. I love English. It's a mess. But I know what you meant, Sister T. I know what you meant. You're saying he was a good grandfather. So, I get to learn the cycle that God has given for each of these plants. They're different stages of life. And we started harvesting off the beans, and for anyone who didn't know this, the more you harvest your beans, the more they will grow. In light of quantity and production, it is best to pick your beans a little early, like a couple of days early. So don't let them reach that full big size that you're dreaming of. Pick them a little early and you'll get more. Because the plant looks at this and says, okay, I need to work harder to put more seed pods on. And so that's what it is. It works harder at putting more seed pods on. And then as you get closer towards its end of life, you stop or you lower the amount of harvesting you're doing, and you let a couple plants or the whole patch, if you really want to, just stop picking them and let them finish the rest of their cycle. They will go through and they will finish growing their seeds, and then they'll die and they'll dry up. And once the plant has dried, the seed pods are ready to be harvested for seeds. Then you can take those seeds and use them for next year and repeat the cycle. That's how God designed the plants to function. If it feels threatened, it puts on more seed pods, aka beans. And then it will eventually get to the point where it dries out And then that's its next generation. Sheila says her mom always had a big garden and a strawberry patch. Yeah, I'm working on my strawberry patch. I'm trying to get it to take off and go. But one thing at a time. Sister T says, I have enjoyed this. Thank you. You're welcome, Sister T. Thank you for being here. I'm going to sing one more song, and then we'll close out. I've enjoyed this. And by the way, Fun Friday. Hooray! We haven't had Sister Reba pop in to start that. But we'll do it for her. And when she does get around to coming back, Sister Reba, Fun Friday. Hooray! One more song. Time is filled with swift transition, not of earth unmoved can stand. Build your hopes on things eternal, hold to God's unchanging hand. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Trust in Him who will not leave you, whatsoever years may bring. If by earthly friends forsaken, still more closely to Him cling. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Covet not this world's vain riches that so rapidly decay. Seek to gain the heavenly treasures, they will never pass away. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. When your journey is completed, if to God you have been true, fair and bright the home and glory your enlightened soul will view. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Indeed, in all of life, through what we go through, whether you're gardening or not, it is always good to remember and remind yourself to hold to His unchanging hand. It won't move. Thank you all for being here. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I am sorry if, well, not really. Never mind. CJ would have been bored to death about the garden talk. It would have killed him. You're welcome, Sheila. And thank you, Sister T. So, I hope that you were able to get some edification out of all of the garden talk, through the humor, through the songs. I know I was encouraged. You two being here, all of y'all being here, it lifts me up and it helps me as I walk my path. And I hope I've been able to return the favor, at least on some bit. Sister Jesus, yes, he would have. He would have died. I tell you, the good Lord designed each of those things that I talked about, that we touched on. He designed it all down to the smallest piece of pollen you could ever imagine. He is a wonderful and an awesome God. Amen? So with that, y'all have a good night. Have a good rest of your evening. Stay strong and take courage. I'll see you again. Till we meet again, God bless you all. Stay safe. Love ya. Bye-bye. Toodaloo and cheerio.